What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us on episode 101 of Arkansas Prep Extra, powered by SBLive. My name's Kyle Sutherland. Nate Olson is not going to be with us today, but we are joined by the recruiting guru, Ryan Wright, as we are on the eve of early signing day. Ryan is the recruiting director for Recruiting News Guru, also known as RNG if you see him on social media. And Ryan, we still got all the bowl games to get through, but with the early signing period this week getting rolling, colleges, of course, are going to get an early look at their future. And I'm glad to have you join me so we can break down some of the top prospects in Arkansas. I know that the last time we spoke was around COVID time, so it's got a little bit different in a good way since then.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm excited for the bowl season. Excited to see the transfer portal, how some of these teams improve their rosters and how that affects high school players.
Before we get started here, I did want to ask you, because like I said, the last time we talked was right around when COVID was really rampant, sometime maybe in the summer of 2020. And this was maybe a year or two after the transfer portal had got going. It was October 2018, I believe, that the transfer portal really became a hot commodity, or at least that it got started. Have you noticed a change in a lot of the recruits that you talk to? Now, of course, NIL has changed a lot as well. Have you noticed much of a change in terms of maybe what exactly a certain recruit is looking for overall throughout this whole entire process in the last few years?
I don't know that anything has changed per se, but everything around what a recruit may look for, in my opinion, has changed. So because of the transfer portal, colleges kind of have a little extra leverage to start pushing to get that verbal commitment earlier than later. And when these kids start going out on the road for official visits, come the end of May, certainly it really ramps up in June. That's the time for them to kind of commit, where these college programs can put the recruiting class for a given year behind them, and then transfer all that energy into the yeah, I mean, I think the kids probably, still are looking for that fit, the defensive scheme. Some guys may put a little bit more on NIL, which, definitely has changed, from what we were looking at even 5 years or so ago. But yeah, I think that just the universe around the kids has changed. And for the most part, the kids are still just trying to find that fit where they can be developed. And they all have those NFL, aspirations, at least, for the most part, if we're talking about the top 400, 500 kids in the country.
And then looking at the 2024 class, it goes without saying it's been pretty interesting there when you look at the top prospects, especially with Charlie Collins, Courtney Crutchfield. Pretty much for the most part, I think a lot of the services, depending on who you look at, has those guys at number one and number two. And of course, it does adjust. But they committed to the University of Arkansas together. As we know, Courtney Crutchfield has since decommitted. There was a bunch of rumors that Collins might actually decommit and then flip to Ole Miss. There was that whole deal. But Collins has since come out and said that he is 1,000% committed to the Razorbacks. It looks like also, too, when you look at some of the 24s, Kobe Branham, the offensive lineman from Fort Smith Southside, C.J. Brown from Bentonville, Wyatt Simmons from Harding Academy, who SBLive spoke to last week, and then also Braylon Russell from Benton that decommitted and then came back on board over the summer. So those names that I just mentioned, I think that probably people feel pretty good about, the ones that, as far as CJ and Braylon and all those guys staying. Also, probably put Charlie Collins in that mix because he's come out publicly multiple times, say that he's going to stay committed and probably ended up signing. But the big one right now is Courtney Crutchfield. His teammate, Austin Dendy, is heading to the University of Missouri. Of course, Courtney Crutchfield announced that Arkansas, Auburn, Missouri, and LSU are in his Final Four. I know right now, at least as of last week from what I was hearing, that things are not really looking good for the home team, Arkansas Razorbacks, for Courtney Crutchfield.
Yeah, I talked to him last week, and there was no discussion about which way you're leaning or anything like that. He did seem very positive when he was talking about Missouri. I think he took his official over the weekend. I'm hopeful to talk to him today and kind of find out how that went. And so that has to be scary if you're on the Arkansas coaching staff. I don't know if they've talked to him yet or not, but you kind of want to get that last visit before either the early signing period or National Signing Day. Missouri got it Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's more Missouri in a way has going for them right now than Arkansas does. There's consistency, 10-win season, and Coach Drinkwitz's offense that they're going to get the ball out.
Yeah.
The receivers are a big part of that. At Arkansas, you kind of have an idea what's going to happen next year with Petrino in the past, but beyond that, you don't know what's going to happen. It just depends on how great of a season Arkansas may have next year.
And do you think that it's those ones that I mentioned now, C.J. Brown, Kobe Branham, I don't really have never heard anything other than they're going to go to the University of Arkansas. It's kind of been with Braylon Russell whenever he decommitted. But then really since he came back on board, it appears like things are pretty solid with him. Do you feel pretty confident, at least in terms of Braylon Russell and Charlie Collins, from the things that you know, that they will end up inking with the Hogs?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Collins came out and reaffirmed his commitment, I would feel good about that. Same with Braylon. I think that when he decommitted, there was that go there for a minute where I think everybody probably thought he was going to go to Tennessee. He took an official, I'm sorry, non-official over the spring, then his official in the summer. And as an offensive player. Again, great offense at Tennessee, under Coach Heupel. So there's an understanding why he would be interested to learn more about what Tennessee's doing there. Um, Having kind of broke the hearts of Arkansas fans when he decommitted, and then whatever lifted their spirits back up again. I mean, I would find it maybe hard to believe or see him decommit. But with recruiting, until the pen hits the paper on a national letter of intent, anything can happen. But I would, if I was a betting man and put money down on Braylon, I'd put him down to go to Arkansas.
Really intriguing prospect out of the 24 class that might not get the hype of these guys that we've just talked about, but I mean, he's put up the production as well as anybody in the state. And that's Jaylen Dupri from Malvern. Of course, he's a over 6,000 yard career rusher. He broke the 30-year long school record by the legend Montario Hill this year, and he is committed to Colorado State. Now, a big thing with Colorado State, Coach Jay Norvell, as Jaylen had mentioned, was on him. I believe that was actually his first offer, if I'm not mistaken. There's been some things over the past couple of weeks that some of the bigger schools have kind of started to come in late, but all signs really to me are showing that Jaylen probably will stick with Colorado State, who was so loyal to him since the beginning.
I mean, he's somebody that the rest of the country has slept on, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, I know he has some great offers. I think like Boston College, Kansas State, Purdue, UNLV, teams like that have offered him. Why the other group of five schools in that region have not offered him, they're just missing out. I mean, he's just a dude out of the backfield. I mean, he's a stat monster. He can run the rock. He can receive it. I mean, he's just an instant offense, with any offense and kind of plug and play. I would not be surprised if he did not sign at the early signing period and kept his recruitment open when the dust settles and all these teams find out what they're getting in the transfer portal, what they're getting in the 2024 class. And he's one of those guys that's going to, again, if he's available, pop. Some services don't even have him, if I remember correctly, as a 3-star. And he's definitely deserving of 3-star recruiting status and has put up numbers that's 4-star, in my opinion, 4-star caliber worthy. So yeah, I'm not surprised that other teams that may be late finding him because he was at Malvern and it's not a bigger program, and now they're realizing he's a workhorse and he can do all this stuff, is so versatile. I would not be surprised to see some teams run at him late.
And then in the 2025 class, really, I personally am extremely excited about this because I love Amari Robinson and Montario Elston, and we'll talk about. I mean, I think we could probably do an entire podcast over what Brad Bolding has at Parkview there with all those Division I, Power 5 athletes even. But the most intriguing one to me, because I'm a line guy, I love to run the football. I love the big uglies, as they call them. Carius Kearney from Marion. And it's so intriguing about him to me, Ryan, is just the fact that you've got all these big time schools that are recruiting him. And there's some that want him at defensive line. There's some that want him at offensive line. Now, I know that's not extremely uncommon, but from the recruiting that I cover just kind of here in the South, around Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, in my area, I don't see that too often to where a kid is wanted that badly by one certain school on either side of the ball. So And that's the thing too about Carius is he's hardly even played football. I think it was in 8th or 9th grade back to junior high. So he's still very green, and there's all kinds of room for him to grow.
I agree 100%. I think he's like 6'4", 305, somewhere in
Yep.
there. If he grows another inch or two, then you're definitely looking, well, yeah, like from Tennessee that were like 6'7" and just monsters in the middle. But chances are that teams would probably be more apt to put him on the offensive line. But I see him more projecting as an interior right now. Defensive tackle, yeah. I mean, he's strong enough, he's big enough, he's got that body already. I would like to see more film of him, really just dominating that line as a defensive tackle. But I love his nasty streak as an offensive lineman. I really do. I mean, he he lets people know on Friday nights that he's there, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys taking ice baths. um, yeah, when it comes to recruiting, yeah, I have talked to him recently, and I know there's some SEC teams that are coming into play for him, like LSU, Missouri. I know he's visited Ole Miss already. I think Tennessee's another team that's kind of catching his eye. With a lot of these kids, the more they get out this spring and start seeing other schools, not waiting to take an official visit to see it for the first time, it's going to be really interesting for Arkansas keeping some of these kids in state, because it becomes highly competitive. They're seeing other facilities, maybe get that home feeling, go back for an official visit, and they're getting it twice. So, yeah, it'd be one of those things. If you can keep visits, it would be favor Arkansas. But I think a lot of teams are going to come after him. He's an SEC caliber player.
And speaking of looking at other schools, the net leads into my next point with Marcus Wimberly of Bauxite and Quinton Murphy of Joe T. Robinson. And I say those two because these are guys that have been committed already in the 25 class that have decommitted. Morris was committed to Arkansas over the summer, and Quinton was a little bit to Ole Miss before him. And I believe Quinton, if I'm not mistaken, had come out, and I don't quote me on this, but I believe he had come out and kind of said, I made a decision a little bit too quickly and wanted to look and at some different options. And I figured that's probably the case with Marcus as well, just especially because both of their recruitings began to take off, made their commitments, and now with plenty of time left in their high school career, both just continuing to seek other options.
Yeah, would love to break them both down. So Marcus is that do-all athlete.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the Steve Atwater when he's at safety. I mean, he will punish receivers going across the middle. And then as a receiver, I mean, he's shifty, he's fast. You never know with track, because I'm not seeing his takeoff. His track times are so, but then you watch his film, and I mean, he's a burner, right? So is this kind of like, what are you seeing? Is it against the competition? Are his track times, is it just his get off is a little slow? But I mean, no matter what, on offense, as a receiver, defense, as a safety, he's a playmaker. And I know he's got some good offers, I think like Michigan, of course, Arkansas, some schools like that. If he gets out this spring, certainly in the summer, performs well at different camps, he's going to blow up. The same if he gets on a 7-on-7 circuit, and can really show his athleticism and compete against other top players in the country. That will be big for him when it comes to recruiting and bringing in other offers. I mean, with Quinton, I can't help but just like the first thing is his speed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like, I know some publications, outlets have him as an athlete, and I can see why, but that shouldn't take away from his ability as a quarterback, because I mean, he does have a nice arm, has nice touch. There's some things that he needs to clean up and work on with his footwork and things like that, but that will come with time. But yeah, I mean, you hear different stuff with Quinton about Ole Miss and stuff like that. Understandably so, the quarterbacks in Lane Kiffin's scheme do really well. The pushback can be, what happens when they go to the NFL beyond that development. But certainly if you want to go put up big numbers, if you're a starter, Lane Kiffin's offense is something that you want to go to is a draw. I mean, no way to sugarcoat that, right? Otherwise we'd be lying to everybody. But yeah, those two guys, great players. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because again, they're P5 caliber guys.
And speaking of P5 guys, I mentioned a second ago, Parkview. I think, Ryan, you could probably come put up a tent outside of their football facilities, and recruiting guys could make a living just fine. Just when you think about Amari Robinson, I mean, even just the 2024 class, their quarterback Eric McGee is going to sign with UCA. I'm not sure if it's going to be early signing period, but he is committed to UCA, going to sign there. But Amari Robinson and Montario Money Elston, two prospects that really have taken off. Of course, Amari Robinson, you look at his offers, Arkansas, he put out a top 10 months ago, and you had Arkansas in there, Florida State, Baylor, Oklahoma, just a who's who list. Then Montario Elston, who his recruiting hasn't quite taken off, but Kansas State did tell head coach Brad Bolding that he was the top player in the country. Now, I'm sure that's something you probably hear quite a bit of. Now, whether or not they're saying that just for brownie points, I don't know. But either way, this kid can play. Both of them can. Definite Power 5 prospects. We already know that with Amari, and I think we're finding that out with Montario.
Yeah, with Omarion, watching his sophomore film, he just screams like an elite Power 5 player. His speed, one of the things that really shows up early in his career on film is his football IQ. He's picking up plays, reading his keys, jumping routes. I mean, and his speed, he can do it all. So he's definitely a very gifted player. You guys know better than I, but I don't think that Parkview, after maybe the third game on the schedule, was challenged this year. So they just kind of, had their run and being able to romp on people, and he thrived in that. So yeah, again, it's going to be the same with all these guys. For Arkansas, you're going to want to keep them. You're going to have a lot of competition with people trying to take them away. Forgive me, who was the other one that you wanted to talk about?
Montario Elston, yeah.
Yeah, so he's somebody else that speed, talk about on the Jets. I think maybe the only thing that is kind of a hindrance for him on film is his size, but it shouldn't be, because, again, he's somebody that is so productive. I know K-State's, I think, put down an offer on him. Other teams are in the mix on that. Would be somebody that I would think the more he camps, where he can show that he's coachable, shows change of direction, what he can do, those offers will come in for him. And once those other offers will come in, he'll start getting those piggyback offers, if you will. The other one, this school, Baylor, TCU is offering him. We need offers. It's great. But yeah, I mean, he's, again, somebody that I don't think he's ranked at all, right? By most publications.
Not that I've seen, no.
3-star worthy, if you don't remember correctly.
And then we talked about an offensive lineman, talked about a few skill players, and we'll close out the 25 class talking about a defensive lineman that, to me, I felt, just out of all the ones that I saw last year, was dominant in the state, and that's Cash Archer. We'll talk about his brother Kane, the sophomore phenom quarterback. But first, Cash, the 2025 defensive end, I guess edge rusher is now what they say in the recruiting style type words. But just, Ryan, I don't know that as far as just, a pass rusher, and even against the run as well, I don't know that I saw a more dominant defender. I saw him in really their biggest games, both times against Little Rock Christian, against Pulaski Academy. And on the season, 50 of his 78 tackles were solo. He had 29 for loss, 20 sacks, also 38 quarterback hurries. And he's got some D1 offers right now. I know Louisville's one of his P5s. I think Ole Miss has offered as well. But what are some things that you have heard and seen from Cash Archer that you like?
What I like, so yeah, you can hit the nail on all the things that jumped off at me. We've seen him off the edge blitz. We see him run blitz. You're going to be hard pressed to find somebody that's more active in the trenches than him, especially getting after the quarterback, running plays down, that sort of thing. I think his recruitment will all depend on how defensive coordinators see him, because he has the size, the build, the strength to play any of the 3 linebacker positions. So I would imagine that some coaches would want to probably see him drop out into the flats, show a little more of his coverage. He's a guy that can play middle with his size. I don't know if that's how Greenwood is going to end up using him, allowing him to do some of that, where if he's put in a different position at the next level, if he doesn't grow, because he's like 6'2", and if he doesn't have those long rangy arms that most of these like SEC schools want for their outside weak side defensive end, that he can fit into another spot, but still on certain downs drop, third down passing situations, drop down and be that guy off the edge for someone. But when they're not in that situation, that he can drop back, play the middle, or go out into the flats, cover a tight end or running back out of the backfield. But yeah, again, I think his recruitment a lot will depend if he grows at all anymore. And just like a lot of these kids, not to be redundant, but him getting out, going to camps, working with different coaches where they can see what he can do and not just say, oh, he's a 6'2", 220 kind of guy or something like that. And he doesn't fit our system because of the size.
And staying with Greenwood, won't get too much into the 2026 class. Obviously, there's still so much to figure out there. But Greenwood, another team just like Parkview that we talked about that's just loaded with talent, I think, at just about every single position. And that is Kane Archer, of course, the sophomore quarterback. He was offered by I think we started hearing about this kid when he was about 12, 13 years old. There's the stories about him going out to California, training with John Beck, and just how dedicated he is. And like I said, the offer from the Razorbacks in the fall of his freshman year, or actually eighth grade year, I'm sorry, and he's just gotten tons of P5s, A&M, I mean, just about every single school at this point, Michigan. Ryan, I'm sure you remember Mitch Mustang back in 2006, and that's probably about who you could compare him to as far as what the recruiting is going to look like as far as when it's all said and done. And Mitch being the parade All-American that he was, I think when it's probably all said and done that we're going to be talking about Kane Archer in that way. I had a chance to see him in multiple, like I said, I saw his brother, so of course I saw him, and just an outstanding player both on the run and of course through the air. The crazy thing about Kane was he didn't even really get to start playing, at least as far as a full game, until about towards the maybe last 2 or 3 games of the regular season. Had that broken arm that kept him very limited for a couple of games. But you also look at his classmate, Cody Taylor, the left guard there, another big-time prospect from the class of 2026, already got multiple P5 offers, gone to a lot of camps. So just right there in the same class, in the 2026 class, you've got 2 that you'll be talking to, I imagine, for quite some time.
Yeah, I've interviewed both of them. I feel like I've been interviewing Kane already for about 5 years and covering him. I feel like he should be a senior and on his way where he needs to be. I've seen Kane in person a couple of times at FBU camps and I believe the FBU All-American game. So yeah, it's just when I kind of run into him here or there, someone was like, "Oh, hey Kane, how's it going?" And we're nowhere close to Arkansas or anywhere else, but yeah, I mean, I really like Kane as a player. He's somebody that has the arm. Obviously, he has the wheels. He can escape pressure. I love how he keeps his eyes downfield, looking for that play, not necessarily always looking to tuck and run. But yeah, he's fantastic. He already has, I can't remember if you said this or not, but I know he has at least 15 offers.
15 to 20, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the big, Michigan, I think he's got Bama, all the big programs he has, and it'll be at his discretion where he wants to go. That's the type of talent. And you drew that fair comparison to Mitch Mustang, all those years ago that, everybody was after. So, but yeah, no, I mean, he's a fantastic talent. And he's only going to get better. He's another one that I don't think it matters if he grows another inch or so, because I think he's already at that 6'1", he's in there somewhere, mark. And I don't think that that's a big deal anymore for college quarterbacks. So, yeah. I mean, we already know what he can do, right? He's very skilled and he's only going to get better. As far as for Cody Taylor, he's already there. He's got the size, just needs to continue to work on his technique and live in the weight room, and he's going to be a monster. I mean, I think he's a little undersized right now. Like, is he about 6'3", 285 in through there? He's young.
I think he is a little bit under 300, but I'm sure he'll see this and he's going to correct me if he's not under 300.
Apologies, Cody, ahead of time if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Kind of going off memory here, but yeah, I mean, he's got time to put the weight on. But I mean, he's another one that he's a fantastic player, and I mean, there's so much talent in the natural state, and if Arkansas can build that proverbial wall and keep all those guys in there, they're going to be fantastic. And then you just start thinking about, with the transfer portal over time, that you're just sprinkling in, adding in other guys here or there, and not relying on the transfer portal to just kind of reshape or format the entire team. But I think more guys they get from in-state, the chances are that those guys will stay and build Arkansas into that powerhouse.
We've been talking with Ryan Wright, the recruiting news guru. You can read more about him and what he does at recruitingnewsguru.com. Ryan, it was great catching up with you. Like I said, it had been quite a few years now. I think we were both in, I know actually we were both in different places, at least in terms of work and who we were working for at that time. So really appreciate you taking time out of, I know this is an incredibly busy time for you as it is for me, but really appreciate you taking some time out to talk about our great athletes that we have in the natural state.
Yeah, Kyle, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to doing it again here soon. Maybe we can find out how Arkansas did and do a recap on their 2024 class.
That's right. Yeah, definitely would love to touch base with you once we get back into February. And of course, we'll be doing, I guess by then, a lot of the major ones have been signed. But of course, we can talk about some of the smaller schools because Arkansas is still going to have some that'll sign by that time. But of course, you can check this out on YouTube, scorebooklive.com/Arkansas, as well as Spotify. And you can check all our written content out at scorebooklive.com/Arkansas. And then you can look at, again, the basketball stuff, catch the recaps from football, and then everything else that we have going on for the remainder of the school year. But for all of us here at SB Live, my name is Kyle Sutherland. We will catch you next week.